Okay, hi class. We're going to talk today about reviewing Flexbox and some beginning typography and just an overall review before we get started on some new content this semester. So we're going to create a layout something like this, right? And we'll be talking about hierarchy of text and learning about M's. So that's something a little bit maybe new to you if you haven't used them before, depending who you've had. So let's first by jumping over to brackets, and I just brought in my start here folder. So whenever you bring a folder into brackets, you just have to drop it, drag the root folder and drop it right into this dark gray sidebar. And when you do that, all the files that are in that folder should show up. You can see how you have the parents that you can arrow down and see what's inside. And I always start with a start here folder. So let's just review what's in this folder so you know everything from scratch. So the index.html, obviously that's your home page. This is the most important page of your document. It basically becomes the template for your other pages as well. So looking at this, we just have a little bit of text on line 1 and 2 that says that we're starting our HTML document. The language is English. Down here, it's ending the HTML document by closing, by having that /HTML or \HTML. And then after the HTML, which you can see if you click on one of those tags, either the opening or the closing, it'll highlight the other tag for you. This comes in really helpful when you're trying to figure out what's closing what. After the HTML, we have our head, and that's where I put a lot of stuff in already for you that you don't have to type out. And then the body, which is where all our content's going to go. That's where all this page content will be going in a minute, and it's empty as of now. So going back to the head, we have some just basic page needs, and I have it all commented out. I love comments. Use comments. I do check to make sure your HTML is organized and not a hot mess. So in the real world, you're going to be working with a team, and other people are going to be looking at your code, and you don't want to be the sloppy coder. So in here we have the title of the page, so we can put something in here. This description would come up in Google. So, again, it's not important for this one, but when we do our main sites, yeah, this would be important for our client. And this would say, something about the website, a sentence or two, and then the author, of course, would be your name in between these quotes. Now, this next line is super important. This is what makes the website responsive. If you do not have this in all your HTMLs, it will not work correctly on the mobile phone or tablet. So put that in. It's just saying to look for the width of the device. Then we have some basic CSS. So I have a reset CSS that it's linking to. So you can see it's linking to a style sheet. And it's linking to a style sheet by Eric Meyer, who I always use his style sheet. It's really basic and easy, and I already linked it to you, but I have the URL here in case you need it for the future. And you can see here that it's in a folder called CSS over here, and it's called Normalize. So there it is right there. So if I click on that, I can see that this is the reset, which basically takes everything back to 0 and baseline, and does all that for us. None, 0, 0, all that good stuff. Then after the reset, I'm linking to my style sheet. So the style sheet here is, again, I have it very blank. There's nothing in it, but it does have a couple things that we need to include, including our media query. So this is what makes it responsive. So if I click on that, you can see that up here at the top, I have just general. This is what's for all devices, desktop, tablet, or mobile. So everything. Then I have, and sometimes I think about this as desktop because underneath that, we have all our tablet, and then underneath that, all our mobile. So this is how we keep it organized. Now, I'm going to make one change to this. I'll change it in yours so you don't have to. I can change the size of the media query. So if I notice there's like a blip somewhere around, 900 and I want to take this up to 920, that's not the end of the world. So basically what this is saying is anywhere between 501 pixels and 900 pixels, which is basically an iPad size, right? iPad's going to fall kind of right in the middle of this. Do everything between these two curly braces, or squigglies as I like to call them. And then anything that's less than 500, so this is an iPhone, Android, something to that, is going to happen between these two curly braces. So this way, as you can see, right now I have for desktop, the background color is yellow. For tablet, the background color is blue. And for mobile, the background color is red. And I keep these colors there until the end, because this is going to show, if these colors do not show, there's something broken. There's probably a extra squiggly or something that's just an unfinished thought. So if I preview this, and I'm just going to hit Save All, and hit that little lightning bolt in the upper right-hand corner, I should have a yellow screen. And then as I take that down to tablet size, notice how it changes to blue. And then as I take it down to mobile, it goes to red. So it's following these colors. So we know that the media queries are working, our CSS is linked. This is really important to check before you get started. All right, so let's go back here. So we link to that, and then we have a fave icon. This is like one of my nitpicky things. If you've had me before, you probably know this. So you can find how to make a fave icon at Xicon Editor. And all that is that's the little icon that sits in your tab up here. So you can see that Firefox has a little Firefox logo. So it's usually the logo or a drop cap or something like that. So you have to make it and then put it in your images folder as it's linked here. All right, so that's our review of what a empty index page looks like. Now let's get to coding a little bit. The first thing we're going to do is, if I look at my layout here that I'm going to create, I'm going to do 2 headlines and a paragraph. So we're going to go down to the body, and I'm going to make a div. I'm going to call it header. So what header is it's an HTML5 tag. And basically, so we don't have to use divs, which is just another word for an empty box, all the time, they came up with these HTML5 headers. It's in the John Duckett book if you want to review these tags that you can use. And the ones that, there's a lot, but the ones that I usually refer to a lot is the header, the footer, the nav, section, article, and I like aside. So these are just a couple that you might want to refer back to and use. What I like about them is they have an opening and a closing tag that are the same. So in the header, I'm going to put an H1, so headline, that says, what did it say? First day. I'm going to do an H2 underneath that. Reviewing Flexbox. And learning something new with M's is our paragraph. So we're going to learn that in 1 second. Maybe new, right? All right, so we basically made an empty box. We called it header. And then inside that box, we have an H1, H2, and paragraph. And I put it in a header so text is just not floating around the screen. We want more control than that. So after I do a little bit of HTML, that's when I hop over to my CSS, and up here at the top, I'm going to add these tags that I just used. So header squiggly, H1 squiggly, H2, and paragraph. Now, I'm kind of going to leave header alone for now. We're not going to do much with that, but it's there in case we want to. H1 and H2 is where I want to do a little bit. So I want to talk about typography really quickly. So the one thing we always want to do, and we can add it right away, is we want to add font size 100% up in the body of your CSS. What this allows us to do, if this is here and it needs to be there for forever and ever, from this point on, is it basically allows us to use M's. Now what M's do, and I can refer back to this over here, we added this already. Basically this is all you need to know, is that 1M equals 16 pixels. So if you were going to make a font size 16 pixels, now you'll put 1M. This is just like converting like inches to centimeters or something like that. It's just another unit of measurement, but this unit of measurement is responsive. It's not a fixed size like this is. So we could change this percentage of our font size and it's going to change it for all our sizes. That's going to really help if you need to change something for, say, mobile or tablet or so on and so forth. So here's your little cheat sheet here. So 16, and there's websites I can show you, but if you know basic math, it's not going to be that hard. So let's go over here, and I'm going to do font size, and I think I made this 72. So what, 72, let's see, and then we have to do math. So 72 of 32, let's do the M's, let's go. M's to pixels conversion. There's tons of websites like this one, pixels to ems.com. So if I wanted to do 72, that's what my document is in Illustrator, then I want to do 4.5 M's. Is it embarrassing that I had to look that up? Maybe. So it's just EM. We don't have to use the S at the end. So that's going to change our size there. And then I think if I look at my document over here, I have this being 36. So again, I could use my converter if I wanted to, which is 2.25. And you'll start getting it down after a little bit. And use points, that you're going to have to, because it's 16, the computer can handle the numbers, it can handle the math. And then I'm just going to have this font size be a standard 1M, which is 16 pixels. All right, so we have our sizes there. Let's just preview that to make sure we have our hierarchy. Perfect, so you can see how it just displays differently. Okay, and now fonts. So I'm going to send a lot of videos about how to do Google Fonts and Adobe Fonts and at FontFace. You need to know all three of those. But for today, I just want to talk about the default fonts that you can use that you don't need to link to any CSS. So there's not many. And these fonts are fonts that are on PCs, they're on Macs, they're on all computers, so you don't have to worry about them looking different or your typography being different. They're the defaults. So Georgia, right, if you're looking for a serif, Georgia's a classic. Arial, Helvetica, Arial Black, good old Comic Sans and Impact. So you can go through, and I'll send this around so you can take a look. But Courier New, if you're looking for a monospace. So there are a select amount of fonts that are default. Do I use these? No, not really. There's so many better fonts out there that we can use, or typefaces now with Adobe fonts, Google fonts that are free to use, or with our subscription, that these kind of become, not as relevant. So, but let's use one today just so you can kind of see. So I'm going to use it for all three of these. So what I can do is a couple things. One, I could put that font family in each one of these. So I could do font family, Helvetica. And then I'll give it a backup font of Arial. And then if that doesn't work, a sans serif. So this is kind of a hierarchy within itself. So my first choice is Helvetica, but If that does not load for whatever reason, then try Arial. If Arial doesn't load, then try any sans serif font that the computer has. So you can see how that changed that right here. So I could copy this and put it for all three of these. Or I could, if this is my main typeface for the whole page, I could put it up in the body, and it's going to do it for all type on the page unless I override it. So here you can see it now. All three of them are Helvetica. A lot easier. The goal is always to write as little code as possible. Let that be HTML or let that be CSS. Now, if I wanted to override it, I could do that really quickly by doing something like this. So now everything should be Helvetica except for the paragraph, that last one, because now I overrided that. Ooh, look at that descender. Delete. Okay, so now we know M's and we know the basic rule of default typography. Now let's review, well, let's do one thing. Let's just also make this text align center so it looks like ours. So in the header, I'm just aligning everything centered that's in the header. And in our case, that is the H1, H2, and paragraph. This is going to bug me, but I'm going to try to let it slide. I can't do it. Okay, so if I wanted to change that, we just need to add some line height. So line height in HTML is our leading. So we can use M's as well for this. So let's just try 2 M's and see what happens. Look at that nice space that occurred. So by adding some leading or line height, we can add space between our lines of typography. Now we're ready for Flexbox. So this is a review of Flexbox. What we're going to do here is we're going to make a 3-column layout, but I'm going to show you how to do 1 column, 2 column, and 3 column really quickly. Then we're just going to talk about how to put some different things inside those boxes. Let that be a color or a gradient or an image. So hopping back over here, I'm going to come down and we're going to first do some HTML and then we'll add it in. The first thing you need to know about Flexbox is whatever you want to flex, how many columns you want. So there's columns. That's why you would use Flexbox. If you want to have 1 column or 2 columns or 3 column layouts, you need to use Flexbox. I do not use floats anymore. I think Flexbox is way easier and more universal. It's accepted by all browsers and we can just move forward with it. So the first thing that you need to know when using Flexbox is you need to put 1 box around everything. So in this case, you can see I have a red box with a line. Even if I made this completely invisible, that's fine. It's still there, right? So it has to be there, even if it's an invisible box. That needs to be there, and then we have the boxes inside of that. So let's start with that. Now I can name this outside box as container box, as parent box, whatever you want to call it. Doesn't have a certain name first. So I'm going to use one of these tags again because I find them easy. So I'm going to use, let's say, section. And open that up. And then in section, so this is kind of, again, this is going to be this box with the red line through it. Now I need 3 more boxes inside of it. Now at this point you have to make a decision, are these boxes going to be the same size or not? That's going to be about naming strategy. So I'm going to make them a div, and I'm just going to make them different just so that's a little bit more complex. So I'm going to make them divs. So it's just an empty box. It has no width, no height, no color. I'm just going to name them 1, 2, and 3. Now, inside this is where I would put content. So I'm just going to put some stuff here, and some stuff here, and some stuff here. This is, I could again put H1s, I could put paragraphs, I could put images, I could put anything I want in these columns, once we get this set up. So now over here, I'm going to add everything that I just put in there. Because they're classes, I need to put a period in front of them. There we go. And what we we need to remember is the flex box doesn't go on the items that the columns inside, it goes on the outside box. That's why that outside box is so important. So in that case, it's called section. This is where the flex box actually goes. So I'm going to open this up, and we always start with, and I gave a handout on this, display flex. Flex wrap, we're going to wrap it. This is going to help it to be responsive when we get down to lower sizes. Flex direction, so we can either go horizontal or vertical. I'm going to do horizontal, right, because they're 1, 2, 3 in this way. This is a row. And then the one that's the magic is the justify content, space around or space between. This is what actually spaces them out evenly on the page. So this little bit of text, if I now preview, see how my 3 columns are spaced out nicely. Stuff, stuff, stuff. That's how easy it would be. Now, let's say I only want 2 columns. I would just delete that one. Now we have 2 columns. Or if I want 1 column, delete that one. So as many boxes that are in section are now going to be in columns. So this is either, you have to, you'll decide how many you want. I could add another one if I wanted to. It would be 4 and 5. So just experiment with that. You can see how you can really add content next to each other super easily. Great. So that's Flexbox in a nutshell. A couple other things that I would recommend, obviously. Let's add some stuff. Let's add those colors to that and whatnot like the original. You can see in mine here I have this red box around it. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to give it a width. I want it to stay center and give it a border and all this good stuff. So let's do border. Let's do, I think it's only 1 pixel, but let's do 2 pixels solid red. So this is going to do a 2 pixel line that's solid and red around the entire thing. There it is. Notice how, since I didn't give it a width or a height, it's just going to take up the whole space. It's 100%. If you don't give a width to something, it's always going to default back to 100%. So with that being said, that's fine. I don't mind the width being 100%, but I want to give it a max width of, let's say, 1,000 pixels. So I want it to be responsive, which we have to use percentages, but only until 1,000 pixels. And then to keep it centered, there's only 2 ways to center things. Oops. And that would be either margin auto or text align center. Margin auto is going to center divs. Text align center is going to center text and any image tags you have. All right, there we go. Now you can see that we have this 1,000 pixel box that no matter how I resize this, it stays in the center. So that's pretty much perfect in that sense. And then once we get smaller, you can see the red border goes 100%. All right, so now let's do this next part that is in the 1, 2, and 3. So let's say here, so in 1, we always want to give this maybe a width and a height, especially since there's not much in it. So I'm going to give it a width of 33%. The reason I chose 33% is because there's 3 boxes. So 33, 33, 33 comes up to 99. I mean, I could be even more precise and do something like that, 33.3. So I'm trying to the whole box itself. And we can add this to all 3 of these since they're all the same size. I can see here, boom, boom, boom. And then we could give it a height. Now, we'll talk about heights more. In this case, I'm going to give it a height so we can actually see the box. Otherwise, it's going to collapse because there's really nothing in it. There's just some words that say stuff. So now if I look at it, I give it a width and a height. We have some height there. Perfect. So I always give my divs first a width and a height, and then I decide if I want to add a background color or a background image. And that's what we're doing here. So the one box is we're just going to do a background color. And it looks like it's red. And then for the second one, I'm going to be doing a background gradient. So what I would suggest here is going onto the web, and this is great practice, and just do gradient CSS. There's tons of sites that do this and how to do this, and they'll generate it for you. I'm just going to choose the first one at the top. Like here is a gradient. I'll choose this one. I can change the colors if I want. I can make it linear, and it's even going to give you the code for it. Doesn't get much easier than that. Now looking at it, you can see it's doing RGB color, it's doing a linear gradient, it's 90 degrees, it has a little transparency, all this other stuff, but that's why this is so fun. It can do it for you. So that is a CSS gradient. And this website is super easy. So cssgradient.io, maybe something to bookmark. And then 3 is an image. Now, I don't have any images in this document right here, so I'm going to have to find one. So I'm going to go on the web, and I'm just going to do puppy. I Google puppy often, and I want to find an image that isn't huge. So thinking about our sizes, we know the height's only 300 pixels. We don't have to get crazy. And I'm sure, oh, look at that poor puppy. I can't see that one. It's always a tough decision. I'm going to try not to waste too much time. Oh my goodness. This one's cute too. Okay. So we're going to save this image. I'm going to save it to my root folder. Let's see where you are. Okay. And what you want to just remember about your images is you want no uppercase, no spaces, no weird characters. You know, keep it really, ooh, it's a bad file size. Let's see if it'll work. Keep it really simple. I don't think that's a weird file type. Okay, let's give it a try. If not, I'll find a different one. So what we're going to do is make this a background image. Now, the reason I'm making it a background image instead of a image tag is because I want to put stuff on top of it. That's going to be really common. We want to be able to put text on top, maybe another image, something like that. So this is how we're going to do that. We're going to do background, image, URL. I'm going to navigate to that image. A little concerned. Oh, good, it's there. You'll be able to see it if the image is in the correct location. Notice how it's looking for it in my images folder, and it's looking for puppy JPEG. I have to double check that. Then what I'm going to do is a couple tricks to background images. So the first one is doing background, size, cover, or contain. Try both of them. See what works better. I'm going to do cover. Background position, center. This is going to keep the image always in the center no matter what. So that way when we're being responsive, it stays center and we don't lose half of the dog's head in tablet or mobile. So this is a really easy way to add a background image to it, and you'll notice that the word stuff is still on top. Pretty great. All right, so those are our 3 images there, 3 columns. You can kind of see we can change this a little bit. Let's say we change the size of these to 25, 25, 25. That's going to add some space between them. That looks a little bit more like the original that we did. And let's say we want to, okay, so the last thing I want to do is be able to move the stuff down into the center of the box of 1, 2, and 3. So the first thing I want to do is add text align center. That's going to move our text right to the middle there. And then I'm going to add some padding to the top of each one of these boxes. So I can see padding top 150, and let's kind of take a look at that, see what that, I mean, it's kind of there. Let's add, whenever you add padding, make a note to yourself. You always want to add box sizing border box. What that does is it does not add the padding to the height. So it's not going to add, instead of the height being 300, it automatically makes it 450. By using this, it takes it back to still 300. And that's pretty center. I mean, I could play around with that a little bit to make it easier, but overall, if I add that to all three of my divs, now each one of those has the content center. All right, lastly, just a quick review of responsive. So as we go down to tablet, let's just break it down here. I have it as 3 columns still. That could be, or you could break this down to 1 column. So what we would need to do here in tablet is, in between these 2 curly braces, I would change the width of these. So up here it's 25%, so I'm just going to say 1, the divs 1, 2, and 3. Notice how I can do them all together. I don't have to do them individually like I did up here. And I'm going to say width 100%. So what that does is it changes it. So now they're stacked on top of each other. 1, 2, and 3. Background color is still blue. And then when I go down to mobile, you can see it still goes back to the 3 columns. I could take that down there as well. So what that's doing is it's making this responsive. So at desktop, we have 3 columns. Here we have 1 column and 1 column. All right, I hope that review kind of helps to get you started. Feel free to email and ask questions.